Welcome. Thank you for joining our Governance, Risk, and Compliance Best Practice Series webinar. I'm Becky Melody, your hostess for today's presentation. Bob Lesneski, our GRC Quality and Compliance Practice Leader, will be presenting. The discussion today will cover introductions, USDM at a glance, webinar logistics, and our discussion topic, improving enterprise governance, risk, and compliance initiatives. We'll invite you to post questions to our team via the iLink message board on the lower left of your screen, and we'll address them immediately following the presentation. Bob Lesneski is our USDM VP of QA and Operational Excellence. He has 25 years in quality assurance and regulatory compliance in pharma, biotech, medical device, nuclear, and petrochemical industries. He leads the USDM quality auditing, project management, EQM, and GRC practices. Bob recently completed a global QMS implementation across 34 countries. USDM is focused exclusively on the life science domain. We're the market leader in providing IT, quality and regulatory compliance professional service solutions to the regulated industry. We're headquartered in Ventura, California, and we're a compliance partner for many of the best-of-breed vendors, including Oracle, SAP, Sparta Systems, which is TrackWise, OpenText, ECM, and Agilent Technologies. We've delivered more than 1,000 successful projects with over 130 life science clients, and we're the preferred compliance partner for small, mid-tier, and large life science companies. We specialize in assisting clients with reducing the regulatory risk while maximizing their investment in quality management systems, business intelligence, GRC, laboratory instrument systems, and IT infrastructure. Our directive is to simplify, unify, and optimize compliance and business objectives. The content will be covered today in approximately 30 minutes, and then you can interact with our team via the message board. And so you know the session is being recorded and will be posted on our website. You can listen to it at your convenience. We invite you to join our discussion. The forum is on LinkedIn, and we will welcome your insight and feedback as well as suggestions for future topics. If you prefer, you can send questions via email to me. It's rmelody@usdatamanagement.com. If you're having any issues logging into the system, I suggest you turn off the pop-up blockers. The overall goal of our webinar today is to facilitate discussion, share ideas, provide the platform, get to the edge, and then explore solutions together. Now, I'll turn the presentation over to Bob. Enjoy the webinar.
Great, thanks, Becky. Good morning or afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I know we have several people from Europe and Canada on, so welcome everyone. My name is Bob Lesneski, and I'll be your main presenter today. Before we begin, let's take a look at our agenda for today's session. We're going to start with a review of some of the factors influencing GRC initiatives and why GRC should be a top priority on your regulatory radar screen. Next, we'll look at the risk of inadequate compliance management systems, supported by an industry benchmarking study, followed by a brief discussion of the risks introduced by isolated risk and compliance initiatives. We'll then take a brief look at the manual processes currently in place in many organizations and the cost of GRC. Then we'll shift gears a bit and look at why GRC represents good business and review some of the business benefits of a centralized approach to compliance. In the second half of the presentation, we'll continue with a call to action and steps for getting to GRC, including a look at one of the industry-leading GRC applications which is currently available. We'll finish up with a discussion of practical lessons learned to improve the effectiveness of your GRC implementation strategy and conclude with a review of the GRC Value Proposition. So we've got a lot of ground to cover in 30 minutes, so let's get started. Until now, regulatory mandates have been the primary catalyst for improving an organization's control environment and business processes. As the financial crisis grips the world economy and corporations struggle to survive, risk management is taking on new importance. Without the ability to coordinate and consolidate governance, risk, and compliance activities, organizations cannot meet the call for greater accountability, nor can they evaluate and manage potential threats to the business while keeping resources and costs in check. The convergence of global standards and accelerating corporate performance expectations only add complexity to managing GRC initiatives. Increasingly, organizations are seeking a better way, a sustainable platform that improves the quality and effectiveness of compliance programs and provides the governance and mechanisms to understand, manage, and mitigate risk. If risk is not currently on your radar screen, it's time to upgrade your detection equipment. A convergence of factors has converted risk management programs from a nice-to-have option to a can't-live-without imperative. Some of these factors include increasing regulatory pressures. The New York Stock Exchange now requires the audit committees of all listed companies to evaluate the risk management practices of the company. We also see the number of regulations and the rate of change increasing. If we stop and take a historical look at the evolution of compliance over the last several decades, one thing is abundantly clear. The regulatory landscape continues to evolve and increase in complexity. To give you a better idea of the magnitude of the federal regulatory compliance burden, one estimate for federal regulatory compliance in 2006 estimated the cost at a staggering $1.2 billion. Another measure which we can apply is the number of regulations and the rate of change. In 1970, the Office of the Federal Register indicated that the CFRs contained about 54,000 pages. That number pales in comparison by today's figures, which indicate that the CFRs now total in excess of 150,000 pages in over 200 volumes. Additionally, we see stakeholders flexing their muscles. Institutional investors now routinely include risk management considerations in their investment decisions, and the cost of capital is being impacted. Both Moody's and Standard & Poor's now include enterprise risk management capabilities in their evaluation criteria. Companies that are deemed deficient can face a decrease in their financial rating and an increase in the cost of capital. And finally, corporate risk has taken on a personal dimension. The out-of-pocket settlements that we've seen in recent shareholder lawsuits have directors and executives clutching their wallets all across the country. GRC touches every function in an organization in one way or another. Whether GRC becomes an intolerable burden that increases company overhead or an enabler of efficiency and success depends on its actual day-to-day impact on your employees' work and whether that impact is enabling or debilitating. For most organizations, unfortunately, the latter is apparently the case. In its 2007 GRC Strategy Survey, the Open Compliance and Ethics Group, or OSEG, found that 65% of respondents claimed that fragmented GRC programs cause serious business problems, including duplication of efforts, redundant or conflicting solutions, higher costs, and silos of information that squander resources and increase the risk of operating in a non-compliant manner. To date, few businesses that have attempted to employ technology to streamline compliance have typically taken a narrow, short-range, or more is better approach. The quick fix is typically to invest in one or more of hundreds of IT products across dozens of categories that are designed to address one or a few discrete aspects of compliance. Most of the investment goes to products aimed at specific aspects of IT security. And what has largely been overlooked is the critical need for tools to improve integration of the processes. A recent study by the Aberdeen Group reports that the preponderance of tactical, project-oriented point solutions often has the effect of end-user organizations acting, in effect, as their own system integrators or absorbing the operational inefficiencies of managing a hodgepodge of discrete systems. The report recommends instead a platform approach that starts with a consistent architecture to facilitate integration and interoperability for collection, correlation, analysis, monitoring, auditing, and reporting on security and compliance-related data. Until businesses expand their view of compliance from a narrow, event-driven project basis to a series of linked, integrated processes, they will struggle to get timely, usable information from their IT GRC investments to drive sound business decisions. While new risk and compliance issues and processes are constantly coming to bear, organizations must take care to tackle the problem at its roots. Instead of treating each issue as an individual problem, as we often do, organizations must define a common process and technology architecture to manage risk and compliance across the entire enterprise. The old paradigm of managing risk and compliance is a recipe for disaster. As the study we just referenced indicates, organizations have been reactive, using manual or point solutions and individual fragmented efforts that do not relate to a broader strategy. This isolated approach to risk and compliance strains the business and all too often results in complexity, redundancy, and failure. So the bottom line is, because of inefficiency, organizations are spending more money on risk and compliance than they should. A non-integrated approach to GRC impacts business performance and how it is managed and executed, resulting in wasted resources and spending. Silos of risk and compliance lead to wasted resources. Instead of thinking about how resources can be leveraged to meet a range of risk and compliance needs, they're developed independently. They often become a Band-Aid, removed from business systems and processes, and as a result, the organization ends up with varying and overlapping processes, systems, controls, and technologies. Poor visibility across the enterprise is another symptom of a reactive approach to risk and compliance, combined with siloed initiatives which make organizations blind to the big picture. Islands of control are individually assessed and monitored, supported by scattered silos of technology that are not integrated into the business itself. Often there develops an overwhelming complexity. Using multiple approaches to risk and compliance can be very confusing. Varying frameworks, manual processes, over-reliance on spreadsheets, and point solutions that lack an enterprise view introduce uncertainty to the business environment. Complexity increases inherent risk and results in controls that are not managed consistently, introducing more points of potential control failure, compliance gaps, and unacceptable risk. Using technology that's not integrated into critical business applications to automate bad processes only further handicaps the business. There's often a lack of business agility. When information is trapped in individual roles, the organization becomes risk and compliance challenged, struggling to gain the full perspective of risk and compliance during business change. The organization is not agile in response to the dynamic business environment. It becomes wrapped up in a multitude of risk and compliance initiatives, creating inefficiency. And finally, there's increased regulatory exposure and vulnerability. Complexity creates more exposure and vulnerability, the opposite of what GRC is designed to achieve. This comes from a narrow attention to the immediate burdens on the business, which can be exacerbated by some GRC solutions that focus on assessment and replacing spreadsheets without aligning and integrating with business processes and enterprise applications. What may seem like an insignificant risk in one part of your organization may have a different impact when other risks are factored in. Organizations often depend on out-of-sync controls and corporate policies that are inadequate to manage risk and compliance. These failures occur because organizations manage specific requirements, risk, and controls, but do not strive for a common integrated framework and architecture to bring harmonization and efficiency to GRC processes. These redundant risk and compliance projects waste time and resources with manual and labor-intensive processes. The cost and performance loss associated with manual and basic technology approaches results in a number of inefficiencies, including reactive firefighting. Managing risk and compliance in siloed projects and assessments results in a reactive approach focused on firefighting rather than fire prevention. Resolving issues after the fact leads to hard costs of investigations, resolution, and often fines, and soft costs of vulnerability and negative impact on your reputation and brand. Another inefficiency that results is the inability to aggregate disparate sources of information. When an organization tries to make sense of all the data collected manually and electronically, it soon realizes it has a nightmare on its hands. How do you aggregate and provide meaningful reports from hundreds to thousands of disparate sources of information? The answer, unfortunately, is too much labor and time. You have files and documents that are out of sync. The effort to track and control versions of all these documents quickly falls out of sync and loses value to the organization. The organization lacks confidence in the accuracy and relevance of the information being reported, which often comes into question. You have increased investment in external auditors and consultants. With reams and reams of out-of-date documents mean more work for external auditors and consultants who come in to validate and attest to compliance, control, and risk management. The more incomplete, inaccurate, and complex sources of data we give them, the more they see dollar signs. And finally, common mode failures and errors are likely to go undetected or uncorrected. When organizations fail to automate and monitor controls, the potential for exposure to fraud, error, and waste increases. Time and resources are spent remediating issues after the fact, which in turn impairs the company's operation and minimizes business performance. So clearly, GRC represents good business, and an aligned and centralized approach to compliance provides significant returns, including a 34% share price improvement of those companies complying with regulations, a 5-to-1 ratio of savings on legal liability avoidance, where for every dollar spent on compliance, you yield a $5 savings on lower legal liability, and finally, a lower cost of equity capital for companies complying with regulations. While the GRC software and services category is fairly new, the need to act to take control of GRC is not. Businesses have been held to standards and regulations predating Sarbanes-Oxley and other similar standards. Given its relatively short life, only a small percentage of businesses have begun investigating GRC solutions, and even fewer are very far along in the implementation stage. The risk of ignoring GRC is far greater than addressing it head-on. Without GRC, you face a number of hazards, including exposure to risk and liability of financial penalties stemming from compliance failure, increasing fragmentation of people, processes, and technology, and wasted time and resources. So what I'd like to do for the remainder of this session is discuss the features and functionality that exist within Oracle's Enterprise Governance Risk and Compliance Manager software, which USDM's FDA Blueprint is built on. Our next webinar, which is scheduled for September 15th, will feature a live demo of the eGRCM software and the FDA Compliance Blueprint, but I'd like to briefly introduce you to its features and benefits today as a preview. As Becky mentioned, we have a number of partnerships with leading software developers, and we've been working with Oracle to develop the FDA blueprint for enterprise GRCM. As an Oracle partner, we receive no commissions or royalties for the sale of their software, so we're able to maintain our objectivity and independence in assisting our clients with finding best-in-class GRC solutions which support their business and regulatory objectives. eGRCM has 5 key components which include true cross-enterprise support, a comprehensive risk management foundation, reduced compliance burden and cost, real-time insights into GRC status, and sustainable GRC management. So let's take a closer look at each of these components individually. In the area of true cross-enterprise support, eGRCM provides 3 key benefits. The first is a common platform with modular application. A key challenge that many organizations face is creating a consolidated view of compliance, risk, and internal controls. GRC work is commonly performed by different operating teams, leveraging little more than self-developed spreadsheets to manage requirements as diverse as financial reporting compliance, environmental compliance, IT governance, and so on. This lack of visibility represents a significant risk to organizations and a key concern to stakeholders. eGRCM creates a common foundation facilitating shared practices, reuse of work, efficiency, and cost savings, while individually supporting the unique focus, processes, information, and security requirements of each group. With a platform and natively built modules for specific initiatives, eGRCM allows each group to configure modules to their specific needs. This approach addresses the problems of siloed GRC responses without imposing a one-size-fits-all solution that diminishes the value of specialized processes and expertise developed for individual compliance and risk requirements. Another key benefit is a secure yet dynamic user experience. Accommodating diverse needs across multiple groups operating globally requires an application that's built around the end user. eGRCM supports the way each individual works while minimizing cost and training overhead associated with an enterprise-scale solution rollout. eGRCM has a unique web interface which drives key information and tasks directly to the user's attention, eliminating the need for learning and navigating a complex menu system. Embedded business intelligence and dashboards give users critical yet relevant insight, while guided navigation ensures that needed tasks are only a click away. Access to information is controlled through role-based security, state-based access, and delegation models, which enforce secure access at the individual data field level. Finally, eGRCM provides a seamless fit across your enterprise systems. Built on Oracle's Fusion middleware technology, eGRCM effectively automates and simplifies your risk and compliance management initiatives while giving you the flexibility to integrate with Oracle eBusiness Suite or PeopleSoft Enterprise Business Systems or any combination of heterogeneous applications. eGRCM supports the broadest number of enterprise applications and fits seamlessly into your existing environment. The second dimension of eGRCM is a comprehensive risk management foundation. In this area, eGRCM provides improved corporate performance through disciplined risk management. When companies fail to clarify their risk appetite and how they understand risk, consequences can be severe. Sponsorship and ownership for risk management may be deficient, risk prioritization flawed, resources misallocated, operations disrupted, and performance diminished. Risk management, therefore, has become a core and critical discipline to help organizations predictably achieve strategic and operational goals. Whether your company chooses to build its risk management program from the bottom up, focusing on operational risks to business processes, or from the top down, based on strategic risk to business objectives, eGRCM provides a flexible risk management framework to give management a holistic, predictive, and relevant view of risk information. eGRCM also provides in-context analysis of risk significance. One of the key tenets of a strong risk management program is developing a comparative understanding of the significant risk to the organization. Many current technologies provide only rudimentary likelihood and impact analysis. eGRCM takes risk assessment to the next level by delivering user-scalable qualitative and quantitative analysis models and the ability to score risk against context-specific criteria. Each line of business or risk discipline can determine its individual criteria for scoring risk significance, and simultaneously, risk scores are normalized so that risk can be understood from the perspective of the entire enterprise. And the last dimension that I want to speak about here just briefly is relevant modeling of risk treatments. Criteria-based thresholds can be set to help management decide which risks exceed a predefined tolerance and require closer monitoring or additional treatment. With scenario-based modeling, alternative plans for resolution can be considered, and different treatments can be simulated to assess the impact of each option. As a result, management clearly can appreciate which risks may affect the normal flow of operations and the attainment of strategic objectives and why. So based on this information, the best course of action and response to risk can be carried out. Another important dimension of eGRCM is reduced compliance burden and cost. As we saw earlier, the regulatory mandates that businesses are subject to continue to grow on a global scale in both number and complexity. In terms of reduced compliance burden and cost, there are several key features of GRCM to consider. First is risk-based test scoping. The first step in regaining control over your business is a well-defined process for determining the scope of internal testing work. eGRCM offers the necessary data and structure to support a multidimensional scoping methodology. The approach empowers your planning teams to scope validation and testing activities according to risk level and significance scores. Scoping also assists in balancing the work between internal audit, management self-assessment, and peer testing. And scoping can focus on individual GRC domains as financial or IT governance, or take into consideration all GRC domains, including interdependencies of processes and controls. So coverage is maximized and redundant work is avoided. With a definite scope of work to be performed, internal and project leads can leverage eGRCM's assessment planning tools to structure testing activities. Testing plans can be organized into quarters or cycles to accommodate preferred timing coinciding with reporting cycles. Resources can be allocated against estimated assessment hours to ensure the organization has the right resource capacity and a balanced workload across individuals. eGRCM orchestrates the execution of assessment plans with individuals responsible for performing testing work, receiving notifications via email, and seeing tasks clearly identified on a role-based dashboard. With a single click, they can perform assessment activities, which may include completing step-by-step testing instructions, attaching supporting evidence, and documenting their results. Along the process, comprehensive metrics track test completion status, pass or fail results, and compare time and cost estimates to actuals, assisting in oversight of the testing process. Most GRC mandates impose similar process and control requirements in the organizations. Harmonizing and applying a single control or process to satisfy several obligations can considerably reduce the compliance burden and give you greater agility to respond to changes to regulations, laws, and guidance. Through eGRCM's unified control management capability, you can catalog controls that satisfy common requirements. A single control can be associated with many processes across different GRC domains. Once testing is performed to validate the design and operating effectiveness of the control, the test result can be leveraged to attest to compliance with multiple mandates. By minimizing redundant testing and improving risk coverage, significant economies can be realized. Another important feature of eGRCM is confident issue tracking and remediation. Inevitably, internal audit and management work to test and validate the effectiveness of your internal control environment will uncover gaps and deficiencies. These must be addressed in order for management and external auditors to confidently sign off on controls or deliver a positive opinion. The eGRCM solution presents a consolidated view of issues across GRC domains and gives you visibility into critical metrics, such as the significance of the issue, the level of risk exposure, or the estimated remediation time to prioritize your remediation activities. And finally, integrated controls monitoring. As companies mature their internal control environment, opportunities to apply technology to automate controls become critical. eGRCM helps companies target areas for automation with the greatest risk mitigation and cost-saving potential. The solution is designed from the ground up, providing the ability to coordinate control documentation and execution, automate testing requirements, and create issues or alerts when monitoring agents discover a potential violation. By embedding governance policies and controls directly into your enterprise systems, eGRCM helps you achieve compliance as a part of normal daily activities instead of after the fact. Other eGRCM benefits include real-time insight into GRC status. Reporting on the status of compliance, testing activities, and open issues, as you know, could be one of the most time-consuming, error-prone, and costly aspects of your GRC program. This is particularly true of companies with silos of activity and a high dependence on spreadsheets and other desktop tools. eGRCM addresses these reporting challenges directly by providing users with embedded business intelligence in role-based dashboards, which deliver information tailored to each user and highlight areas requiring special attention and follow-up. And finally, eGRCM provides a logical framework for all your governance and compliance initiatives. The solution reduces the volume of information clutter and organizes and automates your risk and compliance activities to make the overall process more productive. In this way, you're able to assure effective oversight and management of risk and compliance via a sustainable and repeatable platform. While most of our GRC clients typically report significant cost savings and return on investment, there is room for improvement around how to approach and implement your GRC project. So I'd like to spend just a minute or two to briefly review some recommendations for your implementation strategy, including assembling a strong and broad project team. GRC is really about collaboration and communication across areas of risk and compliance. A solid GRC strategy and implementation should identify and involve all potential stakeholders, such as finance, audit, IT, risk management, and compliance. Involve your auditors at the beginning. Collaboration on a GRC implementation requires cooperation between GRC management and internal audits. The best approach is to involve internal auditing from the beginning so they're fully aware of the value GRC can bring to them and how they can leverage the system for audit purposes while reducing the time spent on audits. It's kind of intuitive, but training your team is another very important factor. While GRC provides tremendous value, it takes a lot of preparation. GRC software implementation requires investment and training of those who will use GRC so they can get the most value out of it. Understanding the organization's readiness for change is also critical. The organization's readiness for change can sometimes be a stumbling block to GRC success because businesses are often content and stuck in manual processes and approaches to risk and compliance. Resistance to change slows down your implementation and associated return on investment. So planning for change and getting everybody on board early will really help make the process more efficient. Establishing clear and concise documentation. Efficiency is critical to getting value out of a GRC implementation. So the organization must document the GRC environment and do so in a way that is clear and concise. And then finally, seek consultant expertise, which is critical to your project's success. Several clients quickly discovered that their GRC implementations went smoothly because they brought in outside help that understood GRC in detail, allowing them to leverage this expertise while streamlining implementation time and costs and facilitating technology transfer as well. To quickly summarize then, GRC done correctly returns value to the organization in 5 key areas, including agility, consistency, efficiency, transparency, and accountability. So at this point, I'm going to turn the program back over to Becky to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Bob. As Bob mentioned, we do invite you at this time to post any questions to the chat list you'll see at the bottom left of your screen. And just a second note that the next USDM GRC webinar is scheduled for September 15th. It's going to be a live demonstration of Oracle's eGRCM along with US Data Management's Validation Accelerator Packs, which together provide the world-class GRC solution that addresses CSV compliance. We will forward you the link to that registration page following this event. And alternatively, you could register for other webinars on our website, as well as the upcoming list of webinars is there, as well as recorded sessions. And each one is approximately 30 minutes, and you can listen at your convenience. And we're finding many of our clients are using them as training sessions. Bob, our first question is from Mary. She states, in her organization, they often have disagreements on who owns GRC. Where should the ownership of GRC lie?
Okay, that's a great question, and I see that often in organizations. And I hate to give you the it depends answer, but I guess what I find is that opinions often differ on who the visible leader of GRC should be, and really there is no universal answer. I think the danger is without a visible leader charged with GRC, multiple functions start separate initiatives, or potentially worse, nothing happens. So a couple of good possibilities, certainly, in terms of who should lead or own GRC would be either the CTO or Chief Financial Officer. I think both of them are strong candidates to own GRC for a number of reasons. They typically have enterprise-wide perspective. They're usually good at using technology and systems. They usually have experience in implementing standards and guidelines, and they typically know how to determine ROI. However, again, depending on how your company is structured and the nature of your business, one of the other members of the executive team could also be a good choice.
Thank you, Bob. The next question is from Mark. They currently have several point solutions and are considering a GRC implementation, but having differing opinions on the key elements of an integrated software solution. What are the key characteristics they should consider? Okay.
There's probably several that I would say should rate very highly. Certainly one would be any GRC solution that you're considering should really fit with your business priorities. Needs to be general enough to address a diverse set of business needs, yet capable of satisfying all the requirements defined by your specific initiative. So certainly, that's a big one. It should provide the ability to start with an IT solution that improves one or more aspects of your GRC program today, but at the same time provide a sound foundation for further improvements down the road. Should also support fast time to results. When it comes to return on investments in IT technologies, senior executives typically expect measurable results quickly, especially with new technology categories such as GRC. Another area which we talked a little bit about today would be that it should be easy to try and easy to use. Typically, the justification to adopt GRC software is to simplify and streamline your systems and activities that enable an effective GRC program. So the software really should simplify, not complicate the task at hand. It should be easy to install, configure, and operate, and should use commonly available technologies because it really supports every business function and touches everyone in your company, and should be compatible with your current and future IT systems. And leverage those IT systems as well, because a lot of the cost of employing IT systems lies in inefficiencies from duplication, incompatibilities between systems, and a lack of sufficient resources to really extract the full value. So it really needs to be able to leverage your existing IT systems and integrate with them, connecting with integrated enterprise systems. Again, having the ability to consolidate and utilize data from any source and increasing the value and return on your GRC investment.
Thank you, Bob. The other questions and requests coming in seem to be asking for copies of the slides and a link to the recorded session. I will be happy to send those out to those of you that requested it. Thank you very much. And I would encourage you to join the community and participate in our discussions on LinkedIn. Again, we're happy to receive feedback there and also ideas for future topics. If you're having particular pain points that you'd like us to address, we'd be happy to work through those with you. We do appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and we appreciate the opportunity to team with you in working towards excellence in compliance. Thank you, Bob, and thank you all for participating. Have a wonderful day.